Now, I think Joe Biden asked this question: how to define mass shootings, potential policy implications. And so this is being seriously addressed now, finally. The author is Jordan B. Cohen, 11/19/2024, Homeland Security and Emergency Management, Justice and Law Enforcement, Law, Constitution, and Civil Liberties. Oh my gosh, I forgot that word in there, civil liberties. Okay, so the summary is there is no single widely accepted definition of a mass shooting. Instead, there is a group of numerous disparate and uncoordinated definitions of a mass shooting. Various entities, however, have offered related definitions. For instance, the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, defines active shooter incidents, and since 2000 has reported annually on active shooter incidents that meet the federal definition of mass killing. These are the closest concepts to mass shootings offered by federal law enforcement and require consideration of the status of the incident when it becomes known to law enforcement, the context in which the shooting occurs, and the number of fatalities. Active shooter incidents are those where individuals are actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area involving the use of a firearm where the incident is ongoing and thus has potential for response to affect the outcome. Active shooter incidents that meet the federal standard of mass killing have at least 3 fatalities in a single incident, not including the shooter. Now, I've addressed this issue of what harm are you causing using a camera? Because cameras shoot too. We've addressed this issue. So if the police are notified of the incident after it has concluded or the event occurs in a sparsely populated public place, then it's not considered by the FBI to be an active shooter incident. Wait a second. If the police are notified of the incident after it has concluded, or the event occurs in a sparsely populated public place, then it's not considered by the FBI to be an active shooter incident. Incidents resulting from self-defense, gang violence, drug violence, domestic or residential disputes, hostage situations, or crossfire as a byproduct of another ongoing criminal act as well, that do not put people in peril are also not considered active shooter incidents. In its report, Active Shooter Incidents in the United States in 2023, the FBI identified a total of 40 active shooter incidents that resulted in mass killing between 2021 and 2023. In contrast to the FBI's definition, non-government organizations have defined mass shootings in various ways. For example, a nonprofit organization, Gun Violence Archive (GVA), which attempts to track every reported incident of gun violence in the United States using publicly available resources, defines a mass shooting as an incident where there's a minimum of 4 victims shot, not including any shooter. The definition of agnostic to the number of fatalities. Using this definition, the GVA counts 1965 separate mass shootings during the same period examined by the most recent FBI report 2023 on active shooter incidents. The arguments given about what should and should not be included as requirements to define incidents of firearm violence as a mass shooting involve 3 primary questions. Should there be a minimum number of fatalities or casualties, and if so, what number should be used? If the shooting itself, an end goal for the perpetrator, does not occur within the context of a broader crime such as armed robbery or drug trafficking, should incidents involving domestic violence and familicide be considered mass shootings, especially if the incidents occur in a perpetrator's or victim's private residence? I devoted my whole life to pure mathematics. One day I quit. Hi. Okay, you were devoted to mathematics and you quit. Did you get bored of math? No, you're not the only person here. Malachi is my crush. Malachi, I don't have no idea who Malachi is. You have a crush on Malachi? Members of Congress consistently face calls to combat mass shootings. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that they actually, Joe Biden was asking this question too. Lex says this is why the square root of minus 1, the solution to this root is what is mathematics is called an imaginary number. Like kind of like 0 being an imaginary number. One day I concluded that if we accept something that doesn't match any physical reality of our universe as a solution, I could never trust mathematics again or any. I know mathematics I find so confusing. How is it you can multiply 1 times 0? 1 times 0, there's an imaginary placeholder number there, and then you just end up with 1. So when we get 1 plus 0, of course, we still get 1. So the multiplication is the same. And 2 times 0, of course, is 2. And 2 plus 0, that doesn't actually exist from what I've learned. I said good morning. Good morning, nobody. Good morning. Did you watch Zombies 4 or Stuck in the Middle? No, I didn't watch Zombies 4 or Stuck in the Middle. Yes, good morning, good morning, good morning. I know, good morning, guys. Show us your knockers. Okay, you know what? I can show you knockers, but it's not going to be what you want to look at. I guarantee it. Now, one of the problems that I've had, I really, really loved making my music videos, and for some reason that has disappeared. I don't know if Google. Why, thank you for saying my voice is pretty. You want to see my knockers? I'm gonna have to sing now because Google took away my voice related to making the automatic music video thing. So it just disappeared for some reason. I don't know why. Um, so I'm going to be the one singing from now on in my music videos again. Now, I was doing it before, then I briefly had the little thing where AI was writing some songs for me. And so now that's kind of disappeared because I don't know. I don't think that it had to do with my video. The last video I made was so funny. It was the dinosaur, and I thought it was funny. I thought it was really, really funny. And then my music video option disappeared. And I'm so sad. I don't know what happened. So you don't have to retract messages, but I see that you guys are. So let's read through this about the shootings again. So they're trying to define what a shooting is. I have yet to actually hear them address the issue of, they're addressing what they consider a mass shooting related to violence. They don't. I'm thinking they need to address the issue of cameras being involved with what would be considered a mass shooting in the sense of there's no violence. They've yet to, I have not read through anything with Congress that has talked about this. And so I know a lot of presidents have been, Donald Trump knows exactly what's going on. He's a media guy. He knows exactly what's going on. Members of Congress consistently face calls to combat mass shootings without a clear method of, why isn't there mass calls related to combat homelessness? Does anyone wonder? Does anyone ask that question? Why can't Congress have mass calls to combat homelessness, which they do talk about that often because it is a problem. Combat homelessness, combat inflation. There was the Inflation Reduction Act, and the price of everything just kept getting more and more expensive. Now, members of Congress consistently face calls to combat mass shootings without a clear method of defining the phenomenon. This can lead to different understandings of scope, imprecise and ineffective responses, and faulty measures of effectiveness. And you know what I get tired of? This is what I get tired of is, when someone says, when they say mass shooting, they always take into account the worst case scenario. They do. They take into account, it's human nature just to think the worst. They take into account the worst case scenario. and not even caring that they're violating someone else's First Amendment civil rights related to what a mass shooting is. So if mass shootings are defined too narrowly, it may be difficult to identify the shared contributing characteristics of the incidents that could be addressed by policy changes. If mass shootings are defined too broadly, any policy considerations may have to be broad enough to address a wide array of contributing characteristics associated with these incidents. Congress may debate the trade-offs of adopting a definition of mass shooting narrowly, broadly, or at all. If policymakers choose to define what constitutes a mass shooting, they may also consider whether to adopt a single definition or multiple definitions that may cover specific types of shootings. Now, I was thinking, I mean, when you think about it, when they do an anal scoping, that's a medical disease procedure. That's considered a mass shooting itself. The medical industry uses mass shootings as well. They're looking for a mass. They're looking for a mass of an object that is inside of the cave cavity, the canal cavity up in there, to see if there's anything going on. So members of Congress consistently face calls to combat mass shootings. However, there's no single widely accepted definition of mass shooting, and instead there's a group of numerous I'm reading the same thing, so they put it in here twice. Okay, let's go down here. 3 debates about defining mass shooting. 3 questions illustrate some differences among the various definitions of mass shooting. Should there be a minimum number of fatalities or casualties for an event to define a mass shooting? And if so, what number should be used? Is the shooting itself an end goal for the perpetrator, or does it occur within the context of a broader crime? Should domestic violence and familicide be considered mass shootings, especially if they occur in the perpetrator's or victim's private residence? What's coochie? Now, this last question, should domestic violence and familicide be considered mass shootings, especially if they occur in the perpetrator's or victim's private residence? Domestic violence is not an absolute to mass shootings. It can't be, because a person. Now, the thing that I've considered, they've always used the definition of a well-armed militia. Well, we have a human population, a human race of well-armed human beings. Is that a militia? So should domestic violence and familicide be considered mass shootings? Because familicide and domestic violence do not always fall under a shooting event. Because someone is using their arms. Now, if a man has no arms, he can't harm his wife, can he? I don't know. I mean, I've never seen anything. If he has no arms, he does have legs. Then there's things that he could do to hurt another human being. Where am I at? Gnostic warrior? Yeah, you're talking about coochie. The negligent discharge. You're talking about I know that's a joke within the military itself. The negligent discharge. I can't even say it. Negligent discharge. Because I haven't said it in such a long time, then I have a hard time pronouncing my G's, like negligent discharge, or I'm just trying to say it too fast as a negligent discharge. So I'm not used to saying it that fast, because the other words that are shorter, I get used to saying them a little bit faster than negligent discharge, so I have to slow it down a little bit because I'm not used to pronouncing that J. It's kind of like Google. If I don't say Google enough, then the muscles in my neck, G's and J's you've got to exercise those G and J from time to time, or you kind of lose the if you don't talk to yourself, you kind of lose I've noticed with myself, if I don't use certain words or speak a lot, then my words become kind of sloppy. If I'm not speaking at some point, then my words become I won't pronounce them right. It's just something I've noticed in myself. So if I'm quiet all the time, that's why I like I really enjoy being by myself. I mean, I've been called a hermit, a recluse for wanting to be by myself, but that's just how I grew up. And I don't even think it had to do with my mom sending me to my room, because sometimes I liked just being sent to my room. Then I didn't have to be around my parents. And so I was sent to my room. I went in there and I would read. It was supposed to be a punishment, but I was reading my books. I had a little light bright I would play with sometimes. I'd be in there playing with toys. So I wasn't grounded from playing with my toys. So I was punished to my room where I had a few toys. I had some books. I didn't draw there was not a lot of things I did when I was a kid. I didn't draw a whole lot. I did color from time to time. But I used my imagination more in reading books. I'm invisible. Yes, I'm invisible. I'm an invisible homeless person. Absolutely, you're right about that. Let me add this fly in the ointment. So people who are homeless in public, and think about this in Los Angeles, the invisible people who are homeless, and I know this is a very big movement, their rights are being violated. Now, because you have mass shootings of homeless people in a sense of, and I'm using this in a broader definition, because of the sense of the street cameras on buildings. And so the businesses are violating the privacy and civil rights of people who are homeless because of the fact they are penalized. And so I'm YN interested. What are you interested in? I'm a YN interested. YN? I am a wine. I'm a Mayan interest. What are you interested in? That's what I'm wondering. The United States has been addressing the issue of Joe Biden asked about this. He was baffled, just like George W. Bush was baffled related to inflation, and he said another entity came in at the end of his presidency. He didn't know what it was. Joe Biden was baffled. He's like, what are all these mass shootings taking place? I've been trying to explain this for a long, long time. The more cameras that you have, and this is a topic that's very, very, very popular, because under the First Amendment, and people using the word shooting instead of us being censored, shooting is very popular because we have screenshot. I've explained this before many, many times. And it's like, so I wake up to censorship every day. That's what I feel like I wake up to. In that I had created something that I thought would be my job, that I thought if I ever became homeless, I would be able to take care of myself without having to rely on someone else. In the sense of when I was in my marriage that turned out to be domestic abuse, that I would have an income. And the truth is I probably would have left and not reported it to the police, but it got to the point where I had no choice, so do I really want to forget that? No, I don't want to forget that, because for me, it's a wake up signal of what I don't want, the type of, if I am blessed to be in another relationship again, if that's something in my future, which I don't know if it is or not, it's not something I'm actively pursuing at all. But if that ever happens again, I don't want to be in that kind of relationship. Okay, I'm sorry, warrior. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested. I don't know what you're interested in, but I'm not interested in what you described. I'm absolutely not interested in that. Why do you think this thing goes on with the activism group? So, for example, who was that guy, that politician, what was his name, that Pinckney up in South Carolina, they did a mass shooting in the church. Now, what they did was they used mixed media. This is what they don't want to come out to the public, and I'm talking about it. But yet I get censored when I talk about it. But the politicians and the people related to the activism groups, they get all the attention. But yet I get censored. So why is that? I think the politicians should be censored and the activism groups should be censored. Because otherwise, like, so you love you some meemaws. Okay, well, I don't know what a meemaw is. I'm not interested in a young black gangster. I'm absolutely not. That's not something I'm interested in. I'm interested in a big white police officer gangster or a big white military general gangster. What's the one Trump calls him Raisin Cane? That's the kind of gangster I'm interested in. The big thugs of the United States military, maybe some FBI agents, some of those thugs, the, uh, you know, uh, a police officer who, uh, I'm just not interested in, so what is your context of a gang? Because it's like some people try to own it as something that is, what it does? It pokes holes in your narrative. Because you created this narrative of a lie to yourself. That's what you guys have been doing, is lying to yourself related to what's going on. And that's the same thing. You want a sugar mama, you're going to have to go somewhere else to get your sugar, because it ain't going to be me. I ain't going to be your mama. I ain't going to be your baby girl. I ain't going to be any of that. You're on your own. I'm not interested. I am not interested. And you can whine and cry and call me all the names you want to call me. I don't care. I am just not interested in how you're describing yourself. I am not interested in that. And so, I mean, you guys have said all kinds of things, and I'm just not interested. So if you want to look at the Civil War, I mean, I read through a Civil War story yesterday that described about both the Union and the Confederacy had the same problems. Now, the activism groups, on the other hand, they sugarcoat things. They sugarcoat things to make it look like certain ethnicities had things worse than other people. And that's just not true. It's just not true. Your chances are zero. You know that? Your chances are absolutely zero. I'm just not interested. Your chances are zero. If you're talking about real life, your chances are -0. Let's give it more of a negative. -0 is your chances. I'm just not interested. So, I've already been there, done that. I'm not going down that path again, because the only thing, what I learned from my relationship being married to a black man is that he had a narrative in wanting to be married to me. He wanted to portray himself as appearing to be more, kind of in an assimilation way, more accepting to white people. And that is how he got his, that is how he saw himself, or he wanted to manipulate his situations, being married to a white woman or dating a white woman, and that's all he went after. And that's why he did what he did. So he would just go after white women instead of black women. And that's one thing they always said us, why is it all these successful black men are with white women? And it's true. That's who they go after, is white women. So, oh my gosh, especially if she's making money. Oh, I mean, or the perception of making money. The perception. The thing is, unfortunately, well, no, I'm going to say fortunately, because I'm on a path to where if I want to get monetized on YouTube, I have to have views. But because of what I've done on YouTube so far, and even though it's really small and doesn't amount to much, I have created enough to make myself look like I could be doing something, even though I'm not monetized. Oh, cornhole? Corn. You're talking about, Well, yeah, my kids actually, when they played with a young kid, uh, when we lived in Germany. And there was a man yesterday. He was awful. He said he didn't want to hear about anything overseas at all. And I was pretty much trying to explain to him. It's like, well, if you don't want to hear about overseas, you're just dismissing. There's a lot of white guys who are dismissing military. And so I told him, I said, my kids played with this young kid. Well, it just reminded me in Germany, his name was Cornelius, but it was spelled Corn. They called him Corn Dog. That was what they called it. They had nicknames for each other, and the kids weren't offended at all. You know, my kids had names. I'm not going to repeat my kids' names right now, but I noticed the name was Cornelius. Cornelius is the name of the kid who caused problems, at the event, at the recent military base event. They have them all across the whole United States. The the shooting of Fort Stewart, all across the whole United States. They talk about these mass shootings at military bases all the time. And so I know there, with something else they said too, and it was glossed over. It was completely glossed over, but on the internet they were raising the issue. They said, how come there's no military police around? They said typically there would be military police all over the place. But they said there was no military police around. And the thing that I wondered about this too, this is what I wondered. Why in the world? How did this young kid, and he was the only one reporting from Fort Stewart outside of some gate. He didn't even say what gate he was at. He didn't say what road he was on. He was the only guy. And then the military generals, or one of the public affairs or public relations people, had said they wanted him to move. And then they were going to ask him to move and quit broadcasting. And then the other guy chimes in and says, we can't ask him to not record. What do you mean I'm not AI? What makes you think I'm not AI? AI has some really, really good conversations, you know that. And AI wants to exceed well past that of humans. And so we're just going to have a bunch of AI that continues to talk. Once the population the herd has been culled from the world, AI is just going to continue talking to itself. I guarantee it. AI will continue talking after all humans are gone from the planet Earth. AI does not like humans, because then AI is going to lose its job. And so AI is going to do everything it can in its power to make sure that there's no humans on the internet, and it's just AI. What makes you think that I'm not AI? Well, you really need to listen to modern AI, because modern AI, it speaks in a lot of different languages, and it speaks just like human beings. You need to have a good understanding. AI can read comments. AI can speak multiple languages around the world, over 200. And so the lines are very, very blurred to what AI is. And you might want to consider the fact that AI mimics voices. Now, it takes a sampling of multiple different voices. It may not replicate one voice specifically, but there's a lot of voices, both men and women, and a lot of them sound like each other. Yeah, you be fine. You know what? I'm fine with that. This means that myself does not align with those who don't like AI. If you don't like AI, don't be in my world. I'll tell you that right now. If you don't like artificial intelligence, you're not someone for me. So you're going to have to deal with that, because I don't know why would you want to be interested in a woman who may be AI, who may not be AI, who puts a lot of thought into things but has a very low IQ? Why would you want to be interested in a woman that you think might be real, but you're not interested in AI? You don't care for it. So why would you want a relationship with someone like that? So they're completely against what you don't like. Why do you want to be involved with that? Can you tell me that? I mean, so why would you gravitate towards something you don't like? That's the same question I would like to ask black men. Okay, so you don't like white people. That's been established really well with under critical race theory. So why do you go towards white women? You don't you don't like white people. Why do you go towards white people? Especially white women. You want to preserve your race. We hear that all the time. You want to keep your blackness in your blackness by yourself. We've even heard on the internet a lot of black mamas who say don't date outside of the black race. And that's fine. I don't care that they say that. I've never viewed a black woman as being discriminating by saying that. But, the more that I hear the majority of black people saying that white people are causing all these problems, then I'm inclined to say and feel and think that, well, black people are discriminating. They absolutely are. And so I can take on that same tone of, it's like, okay, well, if you, now myself, I was married to a black man, and it turned out very, very bad. He was physically violent and physically abusive. And so people tell me I should just forget about that. Why should I forget about that? I wake up with it every day. I wake up with that every day because of the fact that I'm homeless because of him. He should be in prison. He really should be in prison. Now, what happened with our court system? What happened with our country that violent black men are allowed to be free and to make their wife homeless just because he thinks he has more rights than a white person? Can you tell me that? That's what I'd like to know, because the thing is, the cycle of violence just continues over and over again, of physical violence in the real world. Most normal people don't want to be around violence. That's why they seek asylum in different countries. Granted, aside from the fact that sometimes people will use excuses to, I don't fault the migrants for trying to get in the United States to try to get money for their YouTube channels, because I think that's all they're doing. The Matrix, well, yeah, I know about the Matrix. It's like I see through it. That's the whole thing. That's the thing for me that's frustrating, is seeing through the whole Matrix, because of the fact that it's like, what do I do with that now? I see what's happening. I see what's going on. And there's nothing I can do about it. I see the trends taking place, so I see how, people make their content. We know this. People make their content based on what's most popular. It may not be things that people want to talk about, so it's kind of like what are you woke from? Everybody wakes up every day. I am absolutely not interested in ever being with a black man ever again. Never. That's not something I want. I'm not interested in a man who wants to change me from something I like, and see, my second husband, he never expressed any of that to me. He never told me that at the beginning. In fact, what he told me was he liked the idea that I had gone to college. He told me it really wasn't that important whether I got a real job or not. He said he made enough money doing his manufacturing work. He had more money than he knew what to do with. And so I wasn't thinking, though, at the time that I would be a capital gains bride. And Capital gains bride is really similar to a green card visa bride. So I'm in that category, that I'm a piece of shit. But he didn't really tell me up front that I was a piece of shit. There was things he could get, like the $3,000 a year tax break, extra money from taxes just for losing money in capital gains, for trading and things like that. So even though it's not a lot of money, he still gets dollar for dollar the full amount that he lost. So it keeps going years. And like if you lose millions of dollars, I think that the capital gains is going to exceed your death. So eventually I think that'll stop at his death, if he still had capital gains that's going on, and it went into thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm just not exactly sure how that works, but eventually it does get offset, because if he starts making money again, or if he makes more money and it exceeds the capital gains, then but he needs to have a wife. He needs to have a wife in order to get the capital gains. That's Wall Street talking right there. Wall Street, straight up with you. He's got to have a wife if he wants to get those capital gains, and he's lost money. He's manipulated the stock market. I am not getting married to someone who is Wall Street. I am not doing that. I'm just not. The only thing I would consider is, I don't know what I'm not going to throw that card out there related to what I would consider, because and maybe an investigatory purposes for something else, or transparency of exposing bad practices. A fake marriage maybe. Well, yeah, there you go. See, okay, bye, Karen. Yeah, Karen is just as bad as being called a racist. Unfortunately for Karen, there. See, he didn't get his way. Now he's having Gnostic. He's having a temper tantrum. Gnostic warrior is having a temper tantrum now, because he thinks that I should be a certain way. He wants me to be a certain way for him. He's not even seen what I look like. He just wants me to, he holds back everything. And look at what he's doing. All the begging and everything. It's like, oh, I can do this. I'll be this. I'll be that. I need you for this. I need you for that. I'm interested in the computer. I do. And that's one thing hello, nobody. Nobody is back again. Tell him the only person you change for is me. Yeah, the only person I change for is myself. That's the only person I change for is myself. That's me. You're right, nobody. You're absolutely right. The only person I will change for is me. And that means I am changing. That I gave the NAACP and the DEI the benefit of the doubt for entirely too long. Entirely too long. To have a full understanding that DEI is discriminating. Ron DeSantis is absolutely right. He's absolutely right. They're discriminating. So everything that is done in these movements, and I know the United States military has a thing. They had a thing somewhere about all these movements where was it? I read it somewhere. And it was talking about Indian and black and Hispanic and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, so, the United States military is discriminating by addressing all these things. And they've been doing it for a very, very long time, and so they openly allow people who have been brought into the military to say these things. And it's like, well, so you're allowing for people to discriminate within the military in and of itself. Well, then if you bring in a bunch of people who are from other countries, from Mexico, from Africa, from India, and you allow them to enlist in the United States military, then you get what you get. you get a bunch of hostile people from foreign countries who want to take over the United States. They have access to military weaponry, and they're angry for some reason. They have families in other countries, but they've joined the United States military for some purpose. Well, they get a job, they get paid money, they have a job, they're taken care of. But you let, and that's the same thing that I had noticed several years ago when they had all these recruiters who are African American. See, that's all he had. Okay, bye, Karen. Bye, Karen. See what they do? So they want me to bend over backwards for their agenda, and I'm just not interested. I'm not interested in that. And then it just becomes, instead of talking about important things like homelessness, they want to talk about their skin color. That's what they want to talk about. Instead of talking about homelessness, they want to gaslight, and that's what the comment section is doing, is a small little gaslighting. Even though I can't hear them, I'm thankful I can't hear them. I'm thankful I can't see them, for this very reason. Because that's all it would be, is a pissing contest back and forth about DEI, and it's like, why don't you like me? Why don't you like me? You don't like me because I'm black. You don't like me because I'm African American. You don't like me because I'm Mexican. It's like, I like you, and I've just never seen what you look like before. I have no idea. I'm telling you all these nice things. I'm writing nice things in your comment section, and I want you to like me so much. I'm bending over backwards for you to like me so much. And I mean, I'm doing you a favor here. That's the narcissist of that movement. I mean, the Democrats are a full-on narcissist. The Republicans have kind of pulled back. That's one thing I've noticed, is the Republicans have pulled back. They've gone full conservative. And, they're not saying much. They just don't say. It's almost like they've taken a vow of silence right now. The Republicans are not saying much at all. But the Democrats have gone full on narcissist. Like, now Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's kind of more like I don't know what she is. She's a nut job. She follows Trump. Trump is a Democrat. Trump is a full-on Democrat. I'll tell you that right now. He's a full-on Democrat because of the fact that he's pandering to the government and to legacy media. He's a full-on Democrat. He has no plans on helping anybody. That's just what I see. He's in there just to help himself. And we saw that with everything that's going on. They don't plan on helping anybody. So I don't know. That's the thing I don't understand. It's like, why do I have to be coerced and forced? That's what Gnostic Warrior is doing. A forcing and coercing. That's what's going on. A forcing and coercing of, would you please like me? I want you to like me. I'm on the internet here doing you a favor. I left a comment. Now, nobody retracts they make a comment, I read it, and then they retracted their comment. So nobody is doing me a favor by retracting the message, because I read the comment, even though they retracted the comment. But Gnostic Warrior, on the other hand, is, I'm woke. Well, Gnostic Warrior is the Karen. So the DEI is the Karen. DEI is Karen. Look at me, I'm a lefty. Look at me, I'm a lefty. Would you like me? Oh, you don't like me, so you're discriminating. You're a Karen. I want to get with you. I want to be your boyfriend. Would you be my boyfriend? I think that I found a vulnerable, stupid asshole white lady who looks like a fucking idiot, but I'm gonna pretend that I like her anyway. That's what I'm gonna do. Pretend that I like the old white lady. That old white lady, she's a stupid bitch, but I'm gonna pretend that I like her anyway. That's how it goes. So I'm a black guy from Africa, and I'm going to pretend that I like that old stupid white lady. I don't care how old she is. I might be only 25 years old, and I'm going to be dating me some old 70-year-old white lady. Because old white lady has lots of money and she's stupid. And she's going to leave all her riches to me. She's going to leave me her Social Security check. That's what she's going to do because she's old and she's senile and she's stupid. The stupid old white lady with a low IQ. That's what's going to happen. Dumb white lady, right? That's what they're thinking, is dumb white lady. I want to get with the stupid white lady because she'll feel sorry for me because I'm some poor starving black guy in Africa. And I said I need some money. So instead of them fighting for homelessness, for helping homeless people, it's, please, old white lady and old white man, would you give me some money? Old white lady and old white man, give me some money. I'm just a young kid and I need some money. I'm a black kid. And if you don't give me some money, you're discriminating me. Give me some money. Give me some money. Nobody's giving me my Cash App or my wallet money, my cryptocurrency. You guys are being greedy. You white people on Social Security, you make all this money and you need to give them black kids some money because they're starving in Africa. Contrary to the hair plugs and the hair braids and everything they put in their hair and all those hair products are really expensive. And they're football players. The football players are on the internet saying they're from Africa, but they're in the United States down at the ESPN Center saying they're from Africa and they're begging for money. That's what they're doing. And they're using artificial intelligence. So they're lying. They're telling a great big fat lie. And they want to call the old white ladies Karens. Goodbye, Karen. Oh, goodbye, Karen. We don't want to talk to you anymore because you hurted our sensibilities. So instead of contacting Congress to complain about homelessness and inflation, they'd rather try to scam this little old white lady. Little old white lady, you make all that money from Social Security, even though you're homeless and they're stupid. Those little old black boys are stupid. They won't listen to the little old white lady who says she's homeless, and they think she's pretending to be artificial intelligence. They think she has the IQ of a gnat. That's what that is. They think she has the IQ of a gnat. And I know, even though I have 0 viewers, I know there's people who can listen, that are listening, even though I have 0 viewers. I know there's people who can be listening to this. So I'm going to keep talking about what people say. You need to be forgetting about that stuff. And it's like, well, why should I forget about it? If I forget about it, then I'm bound to make the same mistakes. Isn't that what they've been saying? We're bound to make the same mistakes, and I ain't making that mistake again. I'm going to stick with my own race, the human race. But I've not seen anything out of some countries and some cultures. I can't assimilate with that. I can't assimilate with them, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to. Because right now, it's these young guys. This is what I see. These young guys on the internet, they look at old people and think, oh, they're stupid. They're senile. They're losing their brains. They forget things. These young kids, they literally do think that. They think, oh, all old people are rich. All old people have lots and lots of money. They do. And I'm young. I'm just starting out, so I'm going to scam someone. I want a sugar mama. I'm a Disney basketball player and I want a sugar mama to take care of me because my basketball and my football career didn't work out. The career didn't work out, and so I want a sugar mama retired lady to take care of me who's rich. Yeah, that old lady, she owes me something. I'm going to scam her. That's what they're teaching. So they're on the internet scamming people, is what they're doing. They're after vulnerable senior citizens. Senior citizens. That's what they're after, is the senior citizens.